I wanted to start, if we may, with a little story. This is me making my way to the World Football Summit, very excited on Sunday, flying over, coming back to Riyadh. And as I was doing that, I was actually reading a book, very good book, it's very interesting, for those of you who may have read it. But in it, there's a story that struck me that was particularly interesting and very apt for some of the things we're going to talk to today. That's fundamentally about this village, an Italian village called Roseto. It's actually become a Roseto effect, as in social sciences. And fundamentally, this was an Italian village who emigrated over to the US back in the early 20th century. And they have something which is astonishing compared to all other regions in the county where this was set up. And that is, they have no health problems. Their longevity of life is huge. And in general, their health is far beyond any other surrounding communities. And so medical science had a look at what it is, whether it's a Mediterranean diet, what is it going on. But actually the answer is in the social science. And actually it's about they are so tight as a community. Everyone has a role within the community. Everyone feels worthy and part of something. That actually that is what then delivers these amazing health results. So that is something that we can call the power of community. And that's something that my business focuses very much on and is a core part of what we look to do. And it's the power of community that I wanted to share with you today. But specifically, I guess today, in how that means and what does that mean to football? Well, digital communities, which is what I deliver and build, can produce things, particularly when it's user and fan generated, that is very different to normal traditional publishing methods. So with a digital community, you can find all new ways to drive engagement. That can lead to all new ways of gamification and how you drive status and reputation. And that also provides a user-generated monetization opportunity, which is something which I've driven out of my social network business and is something which can be delivered and replicated into the football community. So that's pretty much what we're going to go and try and cover today. So, introduction time. My name's Gary Knight. Well, that used to be me. I think my marketing team have found a photo from a few years ago there. But Realm is a digital platform. We build communities and apply gamification. What we're going to cover off is a little bit about the expertise that comes within my business. And out of that, I wanted to share some case studies of our heritage and our expertise to provide some thoughts to you guys about how this knowledge can be used in football digital community worlds. And then we'll give a little look about what a digital community gamification platform might look like. So, our expertise, well, my business is fundamentally built out of three core tenants, key areas of expertise. First half of my career was running football video games. So there's a huge amount of obvious interaction that was taking place in football video games and football in general. There's a lot of learnings that I've taken from that. More latterly, I've been running social networks and an entertainment-based social network, which is Arabic-speaking specifically for the MENA region. Most of our users are from Saudi, and so that is where our affinity for this region comes from. And then also my technical team, my CTO, and a number of our technical engineering guys built the biggest loyalty program in the UK many years ago. So we have a real expertise in how you build payments and reward mechanisms is something else that we build together. So put all those three levels of expertise together, then that is what we have built the Realm digital engagement platform from. So that's okay and fine, but what do we learn out of that, and what is some takeaways that you could take out, certainly of my experience? Well, to start off with FIFA, now called EA Sports FC, huge game. I looked after this game in the late 90s, early 2000s. And actually, there are a few things that came out of this. So firstly, and this is a tenet across all video games, I think is very interesting when we think about how you digitally deliver content. And that is, you've got to actually deliver an experience which delivers for the first-time user and is really seamless and easy to use. But then if you use it for a long period of time, it still allows you to keep developing, and the more you look at, the more you gain. And so fundamentally, we heard a phrase that we always use for our games: it needs to be easy to use, hard to master. Now that is about making a very, very seamless user experience when you come into your digital facility, but then beyond it, having a huge amount of content that you can develop and go into should you wish. So that was a key learning that maybe we can take out when trying to assess how to deliver content to football fans. The second piece here is the single player and multiplayer piece. So within the football games, there are single-player modes, as I'm sure you can all imagine. But actually, when the multiplayer took place, it became more fun. And to start with, back in the 90s, this was fundamentally, you can have 2 to 4 players sat around a machine. Of course, that became fundamentally different once online play become available. And not only does the multiplayer allow much more competition and much more fun, and you can play with anyone around the world, but normally that constitutes playing with a lot of your friends. That provides the gamification, and that provides the banter that goes with that. That's very important. But there's another piece that comes in with that online play, and certainly, pretty much most evenings hear my son chatting and laughing with his friends while they're playing online games of FIFA or whatever their games of choice is going to be. And actually, the younger generation use these games and the ability to talk to each other online as their community function. So they could be chatting on any type of device, but actually they use games to have their chatting around. And so actually the gaming community piece really builds community, and that's a fundamental learning that we took out and has been part of the reason why FIFA has continued to develop, and EA Sports FC has developed and grown into the huge business that it is these days. On a slightly different take, after looking at FIFA, I ran a game called Football Manager. Now, for those that may be into this is a very different type of game. This is more of a simulation. You become the manager, you take your team, and you pit your wits against others. Mainly a single-player game against the machine. And you take your club to glory, becoming SPL champions, Premier League champions, Champions League winners, etc., etc., if you can figure out the tactics well enough, etc. Now, the key part of this game is it has to be authentic. If you don't believe the actions that you're taking are actually being replicated by the game, it kind of means nothing. So the fundamental authenticity and realism was really, really important. When we're talking about football, whatever we're doing, I heard it on one of the panels we were talking about previously, authenticity, is absolutely fundamental, because everyone is passionate about football, everyone's passionate about their teams, about their players they follow. And actually, if they don't believe that is honest or real, then actually they kind of lose trust in what you're doing. So authenticity is real, and we check and really got a test in this. So my organisation, my company at the time, acquired the fantastic development business that run this game called Sports Interactive, and they had the game, which was fantastic. But at that time, it was called Championship Manager. For any of you who may have actually played this back in the day, Championship Manager was the fantastic game. It then became Football Manager. The people that had Championship Manager name did their own game. So it was a really interesting topic about, okay, when we both released our games, is it going to be the game that is the key and all the fans buy the game, or are they going to buy the brand? Now, of course, it was all to do with the game, because when you play and put as much time and passion into these things, you want those results to be there. So the other game that we continued to be called Championship Manager didn't have the same depth. It hadn't had so many years of development. And so actually, fundamentally there, we learned that actually, brand is important, but only if you're absolutely fundamentally authentic to what you're doing. So that was Football Manager 25. Fancy Premier League. This isn't a company I've been running, but I'm a keen advocate. So anyone out there that's performing in FPL, then just remember game day starts tonight, so make sure you select your teams and get yourself ready for that. It's strange to come on a Tuesday. A couple of things in here. So firstly, I think the UX of this game is absolutely unbelievable. For those that do play, the amount of data, effectively it's a stats engine that goes into this game. And the amount of data, and should you wish to get to it, you can spend hours and hours going into this thing. But actually, the main usage is very much around your team, what you're going to do, what formations, who you're going to select, maybe if you're going to make transfers. So you only need to use a relatively small amount, but it's beautifully done, and it's very, very simple. So there's a huge amount of data. There's, I think, almost 20 million players in part of this thing. It's enormous. But actually, the ease of use of this facility is absolutely fantastic. They've done a great job with that. And then the other point about if you don't play this game, well, it is all about how you are getting on, how many points you score each week and through the season. And of course, competition is important. So you can have many leagues with all your friends, or you can join public leagues. But fundamentally, it's down to bragging rights. And right, how are you getting on versus your friends? What does that look like? Now, one of the core takeouts and learning here is that, I think something like 500,000th in the league at the moment. So 500,000 people in front of me. So that's not too exciting, right? I'm not too near the top of the table. actually, I'm pretty happy with that. That's me doing quite well. I think, that's kind of within about the top 5% or so. Now, if that was just it, okay, you may lose heart. So the importance there, when you're doing leaderboards and status-driven, make sure that it's always timely. So what you do have is, how do you get on that week? So actually, there's a weekly competition that you can take place. There's also a monthly roundup as well as the season roundup. They then have different types of leagues and different cups. So it's always trying to make sure there's a new competition and an engaging competition, no matter what level you are, to try and make sure you can compete and have fun against other people, rather than just getting left behind, having a bad start, and then not bothering with your team because I'm so far behind, I'm not going to get there. So keep making it interesting as you move along was a key learning out of that game. And so the learnings piece here, and forgive me, this is a slightly different presentation to the one that we sent over, but fundamentally, the authenticity is absolutely key. Right? That needs to be there. Gamification brings people together and always provides that retention mechanic of coming back, providing they feel that they're still involved and part of this thing. Multiplayer obviously is very important because that drives and brings communities. And then fundamentally, communities deliver loyalty. When you bring communities together and people are part of that, then loyalty comes out of that, and that, as part of the football business with football fans, I'm sure we all touch that in some way, is a hugely useful benefit to have to take forward whatever the parts of the football industry that you guys work in. So that's case studies of the football side. So wearing my other hat, my business is called the World's Online Festival. It's a social network, it's Arabic speaking. It has actually been running for 16 years. I've been running the business for 7 years. And it is fundamentally driven by users. So we provide a platform, but actually one of the really key takeouts here is that actually if you can make something that is user-driven and a platform that for users use, your users and your fans will amaze you in what they can do. We spent a lot of time today looking at the panels and the various things. A lot of industries producing very good content and using the social networks very well and producing content for that, or first-party content of updating what's going on, etc. But one of the things that really talk about what we've learned about is actually there's no way my organization can provide as good a content, as creative content, as passionate content as what our users can do. So this is our VR experience of our app, and to give you a bit of an idea, so our users in each of our audio channels, they actually run the businesses on our behalf, so they're in charge of this thing. As well as that, within that, they'll have a number of people that promote and produce the show, so you become a promoter if that's where you want to be. If being behind the stage isn't quite enough, if you want to be on the stage, of course, we have content creators who have the opportunity to be on stage and perform, and there's various different ways of status and monetization for those content creators. Then if you're not on the stage, then you're in the chat rooms and you can take part and you can text each other and be interactive with it. So everyone in these groups are involved in this piece. And then I guess key is when you're part of that, to show your appreciation, there is a way that you can gift and provide rewards to show your appreciation and be part of that. So the whole ecosystem driving through to monetization is driven by the users. So we provide the platform and we provide the support, but actually it's a user-generated play. And there's something there that I think there's a lot of learning about. Okay, but so how do you take that into football communities with football fans, rather than football fans just consuming the content? How do you put the football fan right at the heart of what you're doing? So if you do that, here's a look at our DJ deck that the guys use to provide a lot of their content. So as I say, provide the platform, and your fans will provide the creativity that's going to be in play there. And user-generated content is key to them building that loyalty and feeling part of something if you make them feel like they own their relationship with you and what you're doing. And gamification, as ever, rewarding and driving people for targets and status is a fundamental driver of what binds all this together. So that's a little bit of learning that we've made out of running a social network in the GCC region. There are a number of things here around our hierarchy of needs. So everyone, well, maybe not everyone, but there's a thing called Maslow hierarchy of needs, a little bit of psychology to sort of throw in there that I think I'd learned back in 10th grade, somewhere there. Over a number of years, we looked at how do we develop and build real communities that are sustainable and have an ecosystem, and we've actually put a hierarchy around and what that's going to be. So firstly, in any community you're going to go and build, it's all about that first bit there. To start with, You need to provide an environment that has safety and trust and feels a place where fans are happy to come and be part of. Once that is sort of secure and that's in place, then actually it becomes somewhere that you belong, because it becomes somewhere you go on a number of times. You get that trust and belonging, and that ownership piece starts to come in. Then you get the respect and esteem of others. You find that's something that you're going to be, like any, I guess, club in the physical world that you feel part of. And then the real magic happens once that's in play, and you provide those fans or those users with the ability to have this ownership. As we talked about, suddenly, and that's what we have, is many of our users, they'll be advocates, and they'll go and refer what you do to be. They become your best champions. Also, we have a huge amount of our users become official volunteers to look after and try and make the app as good as it possibly can be. And that then drives creativity, entrepreneurialism, and purpose. And so your fans become your absolute best workers. And so get to that play, then obviously that is a self-supporting ecosystem that works for both parties. So that's our hierarchy of needs there. So we had the video games, then the experience of the social networks. The third part, which is for any UK people in the audience, will probably have used this. It's a huge loyalty system where if you go to a supermarket or buy your petrol or go banking, then you can earn points. So the more you spend, the more points you have. So that's fairly straightforward, and the loyalty programs, I'm sure, we almost got there to have a free latte or whatever it is, how many coffees you have. But over the loyalty program, the thing that we really learned coming out of this is that there was a mechanism within people of the Nectar that suddenly you would see huge rewards being made. And as the Nectar company would look at, well, hang on, this can't be possible about this individual has this many points, to suddenly get their whole shopping free. Actually, when they checked into it, and what that became is that certain communities would all club their points together so that they could then have a far greater gain, whether it's their free grocery shop for the week or whatever else. And a lot of this was driven by communities who really needed the support and help. So there was a massive heart that was part of this, in that people were clubbing together and not taking their own points, but giving their points to others in their community, so that they could then go and have that benefit of some free shopping. So out of this, there was some huge psychological motivational behaviors there that we observed, and it's amazing what you can do if you give communities the ability to work together for the good and for the benefit of others. And the other part around there is that communities can drive different monetization opportunities, and that monetization opportunities, as we just talked to there, do not have to be some sort of negative overt commercial piece. It can be something that actually supports a bigger, broader ecosystem. So that's what we learned from our experience there. Now, this, I grant you, is a bit of a challenging slide, as it's not building. But the top piece there, okay, the more you have your users part of your community in your loyalty program, then clearly that is a benefit. But the bottom two pieces of what I really wanted to talk about here. So firstly, your extrinsic motivators, those behavior pieces. Yes, okay, the more benefits and points you build in your loyalty program, or your more status you build in your community, yes, of course, you can get benefits that come out of that. But actually, it's the trust and the intrinsic motivators that are the most important and biggest drivers for users and fans, having committed the research to doing so. And so out of that, the intrinsic motivators is about feeling part of something and believing in what that's going to be. Now, the orange and green is where I would call your focus to, and that would be the main focus right now out of this chart. So first things first, on the trust side, we talked about you have to be authentic. Orange there is if you do anything with your fan base or user base that just looks overtly trying to grab, whether it's money or trying to do things which doesn't feel authentic, that will immediately be a turn-off and a no-no. Right? It's football, we care about it, it's our thing, it has to be believable. What does make a massive difference, rather than disappointing people, is actually if you can surprise and delight and provide new experiences where fans believe they're getting something back for their benefit of all the work they've been doing and all the fan support that they've been giving. That's kind of where we want to be. And so that's fundamentally at the heart of what Realm looks to do by building out a digital fan engagement platform to allow the fans themselves to be at the heart of the whole program. So they put them, allow them to have some ownership of what this is going to be. So what we have here is our core pillars of our platform. You can see on the left-hand side here, fundamentally, first, you need a digital avatar, you need a digital profile. that you can start from, and then you can always develop and build as you move forward for the more levels that you progress in your digital community, for the status you're in. You can have different types of kits, different sorts of trophies, etc. And having a core personal digital profile is one of the core parts of what we have. Secondly, you then need to engage and connect. So there's a community forum platform that allows you to chat and set up structures to build your own communities with your fan bases. Then thirdly, it's about, we talked around gamification being key. So there's all sorts of different types of games that you can put into this piece, but having something around gamification, and games is a core part of that, is really important. But it doesn't just have to be games. As an example, I was on holiday last year. I happened to be up a mountain with my children. My daughter was devastated because she couldn't get a signal because she was struggling on her Snapchat streak, which she had about 350 days, wasn't it? The gamification of, all right, you must have a streak each day, you must do certain things, it is so fundamental to our behaviours and drivers that actually having a gamification program around what you need to do in a community that always delivers the fans with something else to do is a huge part of what the platform can deliver, because it's a huge part that keeps that retention and keeps things live. Think back to the fancy Premier League piece around, even if you're doing badly, then next week there is always a new challenge for you to take on. That's all in play, but then what really delivers on that whole experience is leaderboards, and it's about status and competition about what you're doing. Now, that can come in many ways, but maybe it's the fittest fan, whoever's done the most steps for that week, or who's walked the furthest to the stadium, or whatever that may look like. So status and recognition is a core part, and then of course the whole rewards piece. So think of this as a fan-based loyalty program. How do you, all that good activity that you put in play, how do you get rewarded for that? How do those rewards then make you feel? And a lot of this doesn't necessarily have to be financial rewards or incentives. Actually, the money can't buy stuff is the stuff that our users and fans really want to be involved in. So that is an idea around the core pillars of what an engagement community platform should be having within it. And then here's some examples of various different clients we're looking at about ideas that we're putting in play. But as we talked about, well, okay, first things first, you can have numerous different related types of fan games, etc., that you can come back to in daily requirements, and you keep up your streaks, etc. There's any number of those pieces. But then you can also, as an example, look at, well, if there's a business challenge, okay, but if the challenge is getting your local community and getting more people to the stadium, okay, into the stadium, well, okay, maybe you can put around a structure that has a huge gaming requirement, but linking into actually attending and going to the stadiums themselves and actually accomplishing a number of tasks and challenge what you're doing. So you're using your digital community to foster and enhance your actual physical experience of taking it place. So that could be across a number of different clubs, potentially, if your league's looking at place. If you're actually looking as a club, well, how do you do that as a specific club? Well, okay, maybe it's a community-based treasure hunt type of experience, because we have a AR technology as well as our VR technology, and so we could put that in play. And so actually on the way, the family's on the way to the stadium, there could be any number of different experiences you need to find, you need to go and accomplish on your way into the stadium itself. And as we talked about, no matter what you do, no matter what challenges you're setting as part of the community, what there's going to be, it's really important to then make sure that you reward and provide that accomplishment onto a leaderboard, as we were just talking about there, and make sure that status is in play. So last slide or two, and then we'll go and grab a bite to lunch. But for my social network, the World's Online Festival, there is a couple of things I'd like to share. So firstly, it's around, okay, if you have a user-generated ecosystem on the right-hand side here, it's an ecosystem that everyone can benefit from. So if you are providing the ability to gift and reward to fans, for fans, and they get that recognition and status, that will drive them to do more great creative work. It might drive them to build their communities better. They feel good about it, and they can give rewards around that. And actually, around that piece, particularly around a gifting mechanic, you can then identify new digital types of monetization programs that you can put into play there. Now, within my app, that's exactly how the ecosystem works in the World's Online Festival. So as you can see on the left-hand side here, we've got over 4 million users that come in and use our app. It's fundamentally built on Saudi, so we have an expertise in working with Saudi communities. But on the right-hand side here, you can see my users within the app deliver over 20,000 events a month themselves. So I don't have to go and put a huge program of artists in play. Actually, by providing the platform, my users are the best content creating tool that we can possibly have. That is supported by over 2,000 official volunteers. So I don't pay any of these guys. They get to be the VIP volunteers. They love the status. They want to have that ownership to try and help build that piece. And because they're doing that, I think actually if you total that up, if they're all customer service reps, that's probably $500 million dollars of customer services reps we have right there. But they do it because they love it and they have an ownership of what their actual final sort of experience is going to be. Over and above that, spending, because spending is built around user-generated content, it can be extremely high. So our spending users spend around $150 a month. So put that in sort of relation to I don't know, Netflix or whatever it might be, where you're spending $10. Okay, well, this is a far higher spend because our users care, they have an ownership and a part of this piece. And then over and above that, around sort of content, and you think about fans and user-generated fan base, the videos of the audio shows that we put together have been downloaded and seen over 150 million times. So user-generated content drive enormous benefits and gain, and it's that power of community and the power of digital community that I'll come back to that we started the talk about, which is the absolute focus of Realm. And when you think about digital communities and what that can take, you can also start thinking about the benefits that come out in play. So I'll leave you with this piece, but you can have a digital community that is user-generated and user-driven, which sits perfectly alongside a lot of the other core fan experiences that are in place. You can find a community of building those users. And the one thing you are going to be able to do is enhance and understand your fan base a lot more, because it's a two-way conversation, and that fan base is working with you, for you, alongside you, rather than just delivering content to that fan base. They then become your best advocates, your best referrals. They can actually go and drive those communities and move that forward because they feel that ownership and part of it. And actually what that does take out, and that allows an ecosystem to come in place that diversifies, is that fan experience and can deliver new digital-based monetization programs that sit alongside, rather than taking away all of the more traditional commercial opportunities that we see in the football community. So that's what it could look like when you think about, well, how do you take a digital community and make it physical? Well, okay, maybe at half-time you have a number of leaderboards projected onto the pitch to see whoever the most celebrated fan is of the week, just as an idea and a concept around how you can take digital communities and fuse that with the physical piece. And we're looking at club sponsors, leagues, and broadcasters around how this platform can fit alongside and as part of the overall ecosystem.